Good evening. I'd like to call the August board meeting to order and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We begin with announcements. First, we are thankful for the support of our local fire companies who provide fire and EMS services to our community when we need them. If you are able, please consider donating to your local company to thank them for their service. Our annual Community Day is fast approaching, scheduled for Saturday, October 8th from 2 to 6 p.m. at Wilson Farm Park. If you're looking for a way to join in, volunteers are needed for the various activities throughout the afternoon. Contact Hillary Mallory to let her know how you can help. The Historical Commission meeting scheduled for Wednesday, August 17th has been canceled. The next meeting is scheduled for September 21st. The Park and Recreation Board meeting scheduled for September 14 will be held in Wilson Farm Park instead of the community room. The meeting will start at 7 p.m. and attendees will meet at the picnic pavilion located next to the basketball and volleyball courts on the Route 202 side of the park. A Board of Supervisors meeting is added to the calendar on Wednesday, October 5th, 2022 at 7 p.m. at the Township building for the purpose of presenting the 2023 preliminary budget. There remain open positions on the Park and Recreation Board and Historical Commission. Send your letter of interest and a brief resume to Tredyffrin at tredyffrin.org. Next, we have the approval of minutes. Is there a motion?
So moved.
All ayes in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Motion passes. The board met in executive session prior to this meeting to discuss legal matters. Township business. Supervisor liaison reports, and we begin with Supervisor Miller. Right.
The Planning Commission met on July 21st at 7 p.m. They had two pieces of business. One was to discuss a map change, use, and definition for self-storage facilities. This is the on the site where Sims used to be on on Sweetsford Road. Basically, they've been in front of planning twice now. There's a whole, this is item P before us tonight in the meeting. And basically after discussions and some minor wording changes, the applicant agreed to a 42-foot height restriction, which will be in the deed. And we're gonna vote on it later on tonight. The second piece of business was around the Dunkin' Donuts on Lancaster Avenue near the BMW dealer, across from the BMW dealer, if you know where that is. They wanted a drive-through, so they agreed to take out a few gas pumps. It was a lot of discussion concerning traffic, length of hoses on gas lines, turnaround dimensions, how many cars could be stacked, and would you have traffic issues on Route 30 or Lancaster Avenue in that area. The applicant took all that feedback and is going to return probably in 2 months for land development approval. The next meeting is August 18th, which is this Thursday at 7 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Humble.
No report this month.
Supervisor Wysocki.
Yes, Zoning Hearing Board. Zoning Hearing Board met on July 28 and took actions in two matters. They approved a tree house with several approved exceptions, a tree house on property in South Valley Road. Secondly, they approved the continuation until the Zoning Hearing Board meeting of August 25 of the application for a special exception to construct a twin dwelling at 958 Mount Pleasant Avenue in Wayne. I'd like to also, a lot of folks may already know this, but I just want to put it on the record. I want to announce a development in the Picket Post 355 Chase Road property matter. The applicants Finery LLC and Greenbridge Development have appealed to the Chester County Court of Common Pleas the zoning hearing board's denial of the applicant's substantive validity challenges to the rural conservation zoning designation of the 355 Chase Road property. And that's my report.
Thank you. Supervisor Bhaskar.
Thank you, Mr. Holt. So there were no meetings of the Environmental Advisory Council or the Library Board of Trustees in July, but I did promise my report on the June meetings today. So although they're a little dated, the EAC met on June 28th, and there was a discussion of protecting some of the trees associated with the Conestoga High School expansion, basically protecting them from deer, and there was also excessive mulching. They're also talking about in Tea Garden Park, protecting some of the tree cages, protecting the trees that had tree cages around them. There was a discussion at Wilson Farm Park. There was a volunteer who volunteered to put up bluebird houses, so that's an ongoing discussion. And there was a grant awarded to Valley Forge Trout Unlimited for Krabby Creek improvements to stormwater management. This one is a little dated. There was a Chester County Town Walk on July 28th, but that's behind us. And so there were also discussions about the Pennsylvania CleanEnergy.com. There was a helping municipalities navigate the transition to renewable energy. And there was also a clean energy pamphlet that Rutger Burma has been working on. And then there was discussion of various things like rain garden programs and recycling, and you're going to hear more about the single-use plastic ordinance later today. So the next meeting of the EAC will be next week on Tuesday, the August 23rd. Now on the Library Board of Trustees, they met on June 23rd, and some of the highlights from that meeting. So the Paoli Library is now fully staffed. They're trying to open the libraries on Sundays, but haven't managed to do that yet. There are continuing problems with the HVAC and with the roofing, and it seems like, you fix one thing one place and then something else breaks somewhere else. So it's an ongoing issue with the age of both of them. And they're looking for a Keystone grant for a new roof. With regard to circulation, print circulation is up compared to 2021, but still below the pre-pandemic levels. On the other hand, circulation of e-materials continues to go up. And program attendance is still at the moment less than half what it was pre-pandemic. There's also a discussion of the need for better containers for plastic recycling at the library. Also, there is a library foundation, which, as you know, is a 501c3 that's independent from the Library Board of Trustees. They organize an annual golf classic, and that is on September 29th at St. David's. At this point, all the golfing slots are taken, but there are opportunities for having lunch with the golfers, and also with cocktails and dinner after golf. So one thing I want to say is the library, is a community center. It's not just a place where you can check out books and read them. And today there's actually, unfortunately, we're all missing it because this is going on right now, but there's actually a program of Indian classical music that is being put on by a local community group, celebrating the fact that today is the 75th anniversary of India's independence. And incidentally, this has nothing whatsoever to do with Tredyffrin Township business. But as a personal note, I was born in India, and then I became a U.S. citizen. And yesterday was actually Pakistan's Independence Day. And the reason that the countries of the subcontinent were dependent on Britain, or colonies of Britain, for almost 200 years after the U.S. broke free, was because at the time, England sent their best troops to India, because the Indian subcontinent, because that's where there was lucrative money to be made with spice trade and so on, whereas North America at that point was just wide open spaces with no business opportunities. But anyway, that's an aside from the business here. The next meeting of the Library Board of Trustees will be on August 25th at 7:30 p.m. at Tredyffrin Library. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have a discussion of a responsible contractor ordinance. Discussions are always my favorite part of the evening. I'll kick it off and start by saying that the township is required, pursuant to the Township Code, to publicly bid all contracts in excess of around $22,000 as adjusted from time to time to the lowest, quote, responsible bidder. The township currently does not define in its ordinances or by written policy what it considers, quote, responsible bidders to be. Our general practice has been to heavily focus on bid price and the recommendations of staff and our engineering consultants. It could be time to define what responsible means by ordinance. Work on public projects that require public bids should utilize contractors with the highest qualifications in order to serve the best interests of our citizens. I think that would help save the township money, time, and ensure all work is done in a safe manner by those contractors with excellent work records. The major impact that skilled construction crafts labor has on contracts for construction work on public projects and the limited availability of such craft labor and skill shortages makes it necessary to require contractors and subcontractors to participate in established and formal apprenticeship training programs as a condition of bidding, for the purpose of both promoting successful project delivery and ensuring future workforce development and availability. Further, I find it highly important that skilled workers performing construction projects for the township have proper safety training. An ordinance requiring safety training and participation in OSHA safety courses are important. Our community benefits by ensuring contracting firms receiving contracts provide adequate wages and benefits to their employees and utilize fair business, employment, and training practices that have a positive impact on our community. And while the current system may work to a degree, we need to ensure by law contractors working with the township possess the qualifications, expertise, personnel, and resources necessary for timely delivery of projects. Consequences of not defining a responsible bidder can include having underqualified workmen and women on township projects, delays, change orders, and possible litigation. Multiple neighboring municipalities, including West Goshen, Westchester, Whitpain, White Marsh, the County of Bucks, and our home county right here in Chester County, have realized the importance of defining what it means to be a responsible bidder and have passed RCOs. It all starts by putting pen to paper, and the next step would be to have our solicitor prepare a draft ordinance and work with the ordinance subcommittee. I look forward to hearing comments by fellow supervisors and the public at large.
Thank you, Vice Chair Holt. I don't disagree with anything you say, but what I'd like to say is I'd like to think that when we pick contractors and we go, and this only applies, by the way, the discussion of responsible contractor ordinances. If you look at that ordinance, it applies only to public buildings only. It does not apply anywhere else. But I'd like to think that when we put projects out to bid and we have bid packages. Those bid packages are complete, and we get the best contractors, the best, however, it could be 3, it could be, I've seen 6 or 7. And they're required to comply with our bid packages and do the right thing and act in the right way to the folks who are working for them. So I just start from that premise, and I don't say that it has worked okay for a while. Well, I don't know. I know it's worked pretty well here for much longer than the 7+ years that I've been a supervisor here. So when I'm looking at, I see the mention here, and I looked at the ordinance, which again applies only to public. When I say only to public buildings, I'd like to think that everything we do for our contracting is at the highest level. But I see here safety training, OSHA safety training. You know, I'd want to see those standards. I want to see what do contractors do as a matter of course to comply with whatever safety standards are being applied. And you have here apprentice programs. I use that term because that was in the ordinance. I don't know. I guess again, I don't disagree with anything you said. It's a great standard. Let's put it up here. But I'd also like to think that when we let our contracts, that's a standard. We are letting those contracts under the highest standards. And is everything perfect? No, it's not perfect. But I guess this is fine to apply to as a hard standard for public buildings, but I don't know that I would want to see it apply across the board. I'd like to think that most of our contractors are responsible contractors, if you will, and that's what we do, and that's how we evaluate them. So that's where I stand.
Yeah, I'll jump in.
Go ahead.
So basically, I think that, well, there's a couple of things. One is, I think that as a township, we've been doing a really good job of vetting contractors, and, you know, and I appreciate the diligence and professionalism of township staff in doing that. But one of the things, you know, just because everything has worked well in the past, you know, we should protect ourselves for the future. And the kind of scenario I'm thinking about is what happens if, you know, in the middle of a contract, a contractor decides to sell, you know, to someone else or things like that. We've already awarded the contract. So there are scenarios, and again, I'm not a lawyer, thank God, but this is one of those things where I can think of possible scenarios where things can go wrong. And to some extent, by having an appropriate responsible contracting ordinance, and even if what that ordinance does is codify standards that we're already meeting in practice, I think that it protects us from scenarios in the future where things can go wrong. And I think that that kind of due diligence is appropriate. So I think that if we, with an appropriate responsible contracting ordinance, and obviously the devil is in the details, and you know, we have examples from other townships, but with an appropriate one, I think that there's not any additional burden on the township staff because we're already doing things well, but at the same time, we also make sure that we're protecting the township and the citizens from possible eventualities. Thank you.
I like the idea of a responsible contractor ordinance from the standpoint of educating the public what responsible contractor means or what a responsible bid means. If we're to choose the lowest responsible bidder for contracts, how do we know what they do is responsible unless we have a checklist that they're meeting? On the same track, if we have new contractors coming to Tredyffrin, they're going to understand what we mean by responsible because they're going to have a checklist to see. I think it will save time on the part of our staff because they won't have to be explaining verbally what responsible means. They have this to point to show what the township is looking for. And I do think we need to be open-minded to amending any such ordinance as standards change, as technologies change, as new requirements by the federal government or the state government come aboard that contractors would need to adhere to, so that we're keeping it modern and still applying to whatever that they would be. I don't know why I'm having so much trouble saying this. We just want them to be modern and to continue to add as it comes up. And while I think our staff is terrific on setting out what they think the responsible items for contracting might be, I think it might be wise if we were to get some feedback from contractors in our community who do regular work to look at it and see that something we may have missed or may not have thought was important at the time is added in. Thank you.
I guess I'm going to address one issue that we've heard a couple of times, which is save staff time. I mean, I look at how much we are asking these guys to do right now. We have a stormwater fee, the plastic bag ordinance, the short-term rental ordinance, responsible contract ordinance we're putting on the table. Plus, I mean, we have our agenda here is up to item Q. There's a lot of things, and there's more of us thinking of ideas for them to do than there are of them actually doing the work. I mean that. And so I think a responsible contractor ordinance probably sounds like a great idea. It may be something that's important and we should look at. I just really question how many different projects we can put on these guys right now, and would ask us to prioritize them in terms of what are the one or two things we really want them to do, and say, like, all right, this is a good idea, but it's like a 2023 idea. And plastic bags somehow have gotten to the top, so it's going to be a today, right now idea. I mean, I just think we got to prioritize these in a way that these guys can get the things done that we need them to do. Yeah, I guess that's my point.
So Supervisor Miller, I think I'm in agreement with you there. I saw this on the agenda as a discussion, not that there's a particular time frame attached to it. I think we should, act. It's a good idea. I think we should act on it in a way that we get a good ordinance done, we get it done properly, and we get the staff to do the ordinance well. So we should choose our time carefully.
Yes, we also have to take a look at, I mean, it wasn't mentioned, this ordinance, if you look at the sort of the template responsible contractor ordinance, I don't say only, it applies to public buildings. That's like this building. We're working now on the Public Works building. That's what they apply to. We'd have to look at the scope of this moving forward. Add on to Supervisor Miller's comment, yeah, our staff has a tremendous amount to do, and we're going to have a tremendous amount coming up here with the stormwater management fee. We're going to be all hands on deck on that moving forward, and other things that we're doing here. I think that this is important if we move forward with it, but I don't think that it's something that we have to work on to make sure that we get it done in 2022, this being the middle of August of 2022, with all of the other stuff that we have on our plate coming up. But, in closing, again, we got to take a look at the scope of this if we decide to move forward with a responsible contractor ordinance. Thank you.
Just to be clear, I'm not opposed to looking at this ordinance as something that's important to us. I'm just really pushing back hard on the timing, given everything else on the list, just to be really clear about it.
Any other board comments? Any comments from the public? Well, thank you. I think that was a great discussion and something for us to continue to consider and talk about in the future. Moving on. C, motion to award bid for Pew Road Culvert Replacement Project to Richard E. Pearson Construction Company, Inc. Mr. Burgo.
Chairman Holt and members of the board, this project will be for a culvert replacement. The culvert is located about 0.35 miles east of the intersection of Pew Road with Valley Forge Road on the Hammer Hollow tributary of Trout Creek. This particular existing culvert is a two-pipe system. It's a metal pipe system. It's a concrete pipe system that sustains substantial damage over a period of about 5 years with a variety of the big storms we've had. And in 2021, in those two back-to-back large storms in August and September, where we received upwards of close to a 1,000-year event, it kind of was the final kicker. It took out a portion of the road, and we've had the road closed ever since. We completed design work with Princeton Hydro. We've been coordinating for months and months with PECO, which I am glad to report they are actively working to replace the gas line, which was needed before we could start our construction. So this is really timely tonight. On July 14th, 2022, at 10 a.m., the township received bids from qualified contractors for this Pew Road culvert replacement project. 5 bids were received and reviewed by township staff as well as our consultant at Princeton Hydro. Richard E. Pearson Construction Company was the lowest qualified bidder, and the project itself is identified in the 2022 capital budget. It is identified with 2019 bond funding. It's slightly elevated over that amount that was in there of $900,000, but we have been working with FEMA since Tropical Storm Ida last September, and we are expecting to get some reimbursement funds back at some point in the future. I can't say when that is, but we do expect to get some money back that would be more than compensating for that additional money that would be there. So tonight we're actually asking the board to approve Richard E. Pearson for Engineering Department Project 2022-01, Pew Road Culvert Replacement Project to the lowest qualified bidder, Richard E. Pearson Construction Company, in the amount of $929,000, $426.45. If there's any questions, I can certainly ask it.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It's always good to hear that there's a possibility of money coming back. And the estimated completion is May?
The estimate is May 1st as part of the contract. We would hope that maybe if PECO has told us that they will finish their work by September 1st. If that holds and we can get our contractor up and running in September, there's a good chance we might be finished before May 1st.
Any board comment?
I know the residents who live along that section of Pew Road and the other residents who use Pew Road there to cut between North Valley Forge Road and North Valley Road, or West Valley Road, excuse me, are going to be really happy about this. You know, they've been waiting for a very long time for this to be fixed, and I'm glad to see that it's starting.
Any further board comment? Any public comment? Then I call the matter to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those who are opposed say nay. And I vote yea. D, motion to approve proposal from Jacobs Engineering for stormwater fee program development. Mr. Burgo.
Chairman Holt and members of the board, the stormwater fee program proposal tonight, just to give a little bit of background, there was a detailed memo included in the board packet. It is pretty lengthy. I want to hit on a couple of items just so we can kind of summarize prior to discussion. So Tredyffrin Township has been discussing for a number of years. We've identified a plethora of stormwater capital and operational needs that address our regulatory MS4 requirements, flood reduction needs, as well as stormwater drainage infrastructure. In the past, we consistently searched out and requested funding from the board on various stormwater projects. We've applied for county, state, and federal grants over the years, and we've been doing that even this last year and this year to a fairly large number. And in recent years, compounded with that, we've had a really large number of heavy rainfall events that have really been impacting us with needs for emergency projects to repair and replace existing infrastructure, let alone not even being able to address some of the needs of the projects that we would like to address. Residents have voiced their concerns over flooding, severe storms, erosion, impacts to roadways, culverts, bridges, like we just talked about here with the Pew Road culvert, which was damaged last year on Trout Creek. And really, in order to continue to provide those high level of services that the township and our residents have really looked for and asked the township to do, we need to really look at implementing some type of dedicated, reliable, consistent source of funding for a stormwater management program. So in summary, I mean, we've had 2019, I think we talked about, the board already has dedicated large amounts of funding for bond funding for projects. We completed a stormwater project on Hillside Road, a drainage project, which was constructed last year. We used some of that funding for the Howville Road bridge over the railroad, as well as for this Pew Road project we just talked about that was impacted. And we also, in the mix of that, we replaced our Drummers Lane culvert. Additionally, we've had a variety of bond funding that we had identified for our stormwater master plan that was retooled and used for an emergency project for General Alexander, where we had part of the road collapse and some of the residents had limited access to their property or no access to their property, and it was found that a lot of that pipe was in bad shape, and there was a large project to replace a drainage system in that neighborhood. So we also have another use for some of the remaining bond funding on West Valley Road to replace some aged infrastructure pipe that is basically going bad in that area of Upper Wheatley and West Valley Road. And Public Works will be doing a project in the future with that money. On top of that, we've already been working on a variety of projects, both grant projects with the Valley Creek Restoration Partnership. They've gotten some money from DEP and the Commonwealth, as well as private sources for these Krabby Creek infiltration trenches. The township has continued to work for grant opportunities. We applied for and received Pennsylvania DEP Growing Greener funding in the amount of $340,000 that we applied for in 2021, and we received at the beginning of this year for the Bear Road Stormwater Project. In addition, we applied to other sources with Chester County for funding and DCED for the Commonwealth funding of $4.4 million for a variety of projects for stormwater that are identified in the township's capital budget. In addition, the township received some ARP money, which we have put towards projects for Stratford Park and Woodland, Willis, and Upper Wheatley roads. We're also working with FEMA and PEMA on monies for stormwater projects to try to get additional funding there. So regardless of all the sources of funding, the one thing that's certain is the funding for stormwater management, looking at it in pieces, or by private and public dollars, township bonds, reserves, taxes, it's inefficient and inadequate to fully address the existing township-wide stormwater needs of the stormwater management program going forward long-term into the future. In the upcoming 5-year capital plan, we've identified a number of projects, upwards of almost $14 million worth of projects. It's probably even greater than a 5-year plan. And there's obligations that we have, as we had identified, for regulatory DEP requirements, for flood reduction projects, and for operational work. Going back to earlier this year, I think there was a lot of discussion. The board had entertained meetings with the public for special strategic funding, and the board received input from the public on those meetings on March 7th and April 4th. Furthermore, the board entertained further discussion at their April 18th meeting, and they approved a motion for the township staff to prepare a plan to implement a stormwater management fee. At the June 21st meeting, the board adopted a resolution 2022-14 authorizing township staff and its consultants to develop a detailed proposal to establish and impose an annual stormwater management fee. So at this point, we've had some additional discussions with Jacobs Engineering, one of our consultants who we've worked at for a long time, who have high qualifications and have had demonstrated that they've done a number of these stormwater management fees setups throughout the United States, as well as in Pennsylvania. And we did receive a proposal from them. We did review it and provide some comments. We asked them to go back and take a little look and add some additional public meetings, both with the board as well as with some of the groups in there throughout the township. And we received a final proposal on July 28th, which was included in your packet and was posted on the board website, I believe. It's before the board this evening for discussion and for consideration. It has 8 different tasks in there, ranging from stormwater program review, including level of service analysis, impervious area parcel evaluation, stormwater rate structure analysis, key policy development, program recommendations, ordinance development, public education and outreach. And we are asking the board respectfully tonight to consider approval of the Jacobs Engineering proposal for consulting services to set up the stormwater fee program development project in the amount of $397,968.
Thank you, Mr. Burgo. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Board comment.
Mr. Vice Chair, Steve, I just wanted to confirm with you that we're also, and I don't believe you mentioned this, we're also going for an expedited development of the fee, stormwater management fee. So, and to put some wild and crazy numbers, not that, but because it's a little bit of a guess, and one of my fellow supervisors here has put a number on it. We're trying to get this done in no later than mid-2024. And people say, how long does it take? Why do you have to take that long? Well, if you go on our website, and if you click on, you land on August 15, you will find the proposal, and you'll see why it will take that long. But if we get it done at that point, we will be making $3 million, at least $3 million. If we don't, if we had gone under a standard procedure to get these things done, you would probably not be getting collection until 2025. And that was important to the board, and I believe we felt that it was important to residents who, we've talked a lot about this, and it was time to move ahead and in an expeditious manner get this program started. And it takes a lot of work. It's not just, even though the Stormwater Task Force has done a fantastic job, and we will continue to use the work that they've done, but it's not just taking their work and plugging it in somewhere and magically it produces a program. That doesn't work. What we've also done here, and Steve mentioned it, we are going to focus on public outreach in various different ways, with workshops, with smaller groups, with a core group, advisory group, as we move forward to try to get this done. But I just wanted to make that point that we are trying to do this in an expedited manner to make sure that we start collecting this fee and using the monies for our stormwater projects.
I wanted to say that I support this. I have heard from many different residents from different parts of the township and of different political persuasions, and all the people I've talked to said they support a stormwater fee because it's not just them paying into it, it's everybody paying into it. And they know that we need this for our township. Even if their road is not affected, they know that there's other major roads and major throughways that are. So I support this.
I just want to, Steve, compliment you on a really well-written memo. I mean, this is like really thorough, and obviously the proposal was a ton of work, and obviously there's a lot of feedback from you that went into that to get what I think is a very aggressive, as Murph pointed out, but doable, hopefully doable plan. And I think I'm looking at anything that Murph or Sharon haven't already said. I mean, the Stormwater Task Force did a great job, and this is something we've been talking about for a while, and it's time to get on with it. So I'm very, very supportive of moving on. Thank you.
Mr. Burgo and Mr. Draco, what will be the total cost to the township, including this $400,000, before we begin to implement and collect the stormwater management fee.
The only other really outside additional costs that we're going to have are just going to be legal costs, because we will have one of Mr. McKenna's associates essentially with us at all these meetings, providing legal advice, feedback, especially as we work through writing the actual ordinance that we don't necessarily have an estimate on at this point.
And then operationally going forward, remind me, are we going to have a particular finance clerk who will be handling stormwater management fees? And what
Yeah.
would the cost of that position be?
That is probably that position itself is probably in the $40,000 to $50,000 range a year. I'm working on our operating budget for next year. I would expect that to be in the $1 million, $1.2 million range when it's all said and done. That includes, our public works staff, all that.
Thank you. Personally, I have a difficult time. This is where the rubber hits the road. This is, in my mind, the point of no return on the stormwater management fee. And I personally believe that a earned income tax could be a lot more efficient way of developing the revenue needed to match these needs in the township. I feel that, unfortunately, we didn't give the best information to the public when we were discussing the possibility of an earned income tax in Tredyffrin Township. I think the amounts that could be generated on a less than 1% earned income tax would be substantial. So much so that we could easily cover the stormwater management fee together with a lot of other necessary items in the township. It's also such a shame to see how much money is going to other municipalities from residents of the Tredyffrin Township outside where that money could be staying here. I think we should have done a professional consultant analysis. It's Monday morning quarterbacking. I understand that. I get it. But that's why I have a real hesitancy in moving forward with this plan. Having said that, I'm going to vote for it, but I think it's always important for the public to know where thoughts are, and it doesn't mean that we won't be looking at something like that in the future to meet other township needs. So with that, is there any other board comment? Any public comment?
Ray Clark from Overlook Place in Malvern. I wanted to thank the board for keeping the pedal to the metal on this and coming up with a very aggressive time frame and requirements on the consultant to do this. And clearly we've got a correspondingly huge fee. This is like 400 grand, which is in anybody's book a lot of money. And obviously, I'm hoping that you will hold the consultant's feet to the fire to deliver a correspondingly high-quality product, which clearly the township deserves for this amount of money. And from the proposal, Jacob seems very well qualified to deliver that. So I think we should feel very confident, but also very conscious of the need to keep pressing. One thing I would say is that there's a big chunk of that money comes from task 1, program needs and level of service analysis, and a big chunk from rate structure. The task force did a fair amount of work, and I completely understand what Supervisor Wysocki said. You can't just take that and plug that in. But to the extent that that is leverageable and may reduce the amount of time that Jacobs take, would it be possible to have this money be a not to exceed and just kind of try to apply a little pressure on making sure that we use all the available current information? So just one thought on that. But I think that bottom line, we have the right partner here and the right timetable. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Any other public comment? Hearing and seeing none, I call the matter to a vote. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 All those against, say nay. And the chair votes aye. E, motion to approve 2022-2023 salt bid. Mr. Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the board. Staff is requesting the Board of Supervisors approval for the 22-23 winter season de-icer products through the Chester County Consortium, West Bradford Township, with the quantities for all involved townships out to bid. The bid sheet is enclosed, and the winner for sodium chloride this year is Eastern Salt Company at $75 a ton, which is up from $64.50 from last year. Just for the record, last year we used approximately 2,000 tons of sodium chloride for the season. The other bid winners were Eastern Salt for solar salt at $81 a ton and Chemical Equipment Labs for enhanced de-icer at $81 a ton. The township doesn't regularly use these, the solar or the enhanced salt, but with all the supply chain issues, we just want to make sure we could, bend in case we have to switch over to them. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any board comment?
Yeah, actually, I have a question, Mr. Fitzgerald. What's the difference between regular salt, enhanced salt, and solar salt?
Okay, the enhanced salt actually has a chemical that's put on it, so it actually will stick to the road a little bit better, and the solar salt is just like a cleaner salt.
Thank you.
Any additional board comments? Perhaps about the inflationary costs of salt? No. Okay. Any public comments? Hearing none, I call the matter to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those against say nay. Motion passes. G, motion to approve change order for court resurfacing. Mr. DeRocco.
Want to skip F?
All right. Oh, well, that one's, yeah, we should do that one. All right.
We did.
F, motion to ratify the replacement of the HVAC system in the Public Works offices. Mr. DeRocco. Now, I notice this is not going to Mr. Fitzgerald because there's probably a conflict of interest there, but we'll start with Mr. DeRocco.
No, I think Darren was actually on vacation. Were you on vacation? No, I handled it though. Of course, naturally during the heat wave, the original 25-year-old compressor unit stopped working, leaving the offices, the locker room, the kitchen, and our Public Works area unusable. Had to get it fixed. We had one of our contractors, who is a CoStar's contractor, get that replaced pretty quickly. The cost of the unit was $16,525. I can tell you that the unit's up and running, and it's quite comfortable down there now. Happy to answer any questions.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any board comment? Any public comment? Hearing none, I call the matter to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Against? Ayes have it. Motion passes. Now to G, talk about the court resurfacing. Motion to approve change order for court resurfacing. Mr. DeRocco.
Thank you. During the resurfacing of LAD and Maisie B Hall parks, we required a little bit more court resurfacing, I think at Maisie B, for the basketball court, as well as some extra millings from getting all that straightened out. The additional cost is $7,259.08. We have some ARPA money left over from the project from being under budget, as well as some fee in lieu of money as well that's available for this. Happy to answer any questions.
That's good to hear. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any board comment?
Yes, Mr. DeRocco, one of the things I noticed for the increased price was better leveling of the basketball courts at Maisie B Park. And I just want to know, is that something that generally happens over time to all of the courts, or was it not leveled properly the last time it was surfaced?
What had happened was once they took off the top surface and they milled it down, there was a bunch of issues underneath with the blacktop that was underneath. So instead of taking it all out, we figured it was cheaper just to go ahead and put a leveling course down and then put blacktop on top of that. So, but to go ahead and just resurface it the way it was, it would have been cracked in a couple of years. So.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Any further board comment? Any public comment? Seeing none, I call the matter to a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? Motion passes. H, motion to authorize capital purchase of a vehicle for the sewer department. Mr. Duraco.
Thank you. We are requesting authorization to purchase a 2022 Ford Explorer for the sewer project manager that we've posted and hopefully we'll be interviewing for soon. Darren was able to find a vehicle for us. It's actually under budget. We had $45,000 budgeted. Cost is $39,000. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any board comment?
Yes, which is,
Is this an additional vehicle for our fleet? Is that, or is it
Yeah.
replacement?
I have a comment which is, you know, I understand that the circumstances of this particular vehicle purchase, given that we have a need and given that we have a vehicle that we've identified and vehicles are not easy to come by these days, I understand that we're making this purchase the way we're making it. However, in order to meet our commitments to clean energy, for the future, I really would like to see us evaluate what it would take to have an electric vehicle, whether there are any electric vehicles that will meet the needs, and what it would take to have those. The longest journey is the one that's never begun. We need to take that first step sometime. And I realize that perhaps this is not the time for that first step, but we do need to be thinking about that first step and take it soon.
And I think those are very well said comments, Supervisor Bhaskar. Any further board comment?
I would just comment on Supervisor Bhaskar's comment about the clean energy and electric vehicles. From what I understand, electric vehicles are still powered using fossil fuels, and I read something in the last 2 weeks where Elon Musk said the United States doesn't have enough electricity if everybody were to go to electric vehicles. So I realize that the electric vehicles do make the air around us cleaner. I think we might be, or the greater use of electric vehicles increases the pollution around the world. And if anybody wants to educate me otherwise, I am really open to it, because I see a lot of this, how all the electricity when we plug in and when different cities or states have to go to rolling blackouts, you know, they don't want people charging their cars during then, because otherwise people can't keep the electricity on their homes. So I'm just not 100% sure with a changeover to electric vehicles. So, and like I said, I'm really open. If there's somebody on the EAC or somebody who's a resident of the township wants to educate me more on the subject, I'm open to it. Thank you.
So, Supervisor Humble, I'd be happy to do that at some point in the future. Now is obviously not the time. But one of the benefits of electric vehicles is that if you look at power consumption over the 24-hour cycle, it's not even. So one of the benefits of an electric vehicle is that and I'm just using this as a for example, but one of the things you can do is you can set up your charging times to even out the power generation, power consumption cycle. So you charge the vehicles when there's less power consumption going on. And what's happening in some places in Europe, like Utrecht in the Netherlands, they actually use electric vehicles as a way to provide energy back into the grid when they, you know, at times of peak load. So electric vehicles actually properly managed can be a way to help manage the grid and manage our power resources. And there's a lot of research on this subject and a lot of papers that have been published, and I'd be happy to to discuss those with Supervisor Humble and anyone else who's interested.
Thank you.
Any public comment? Ms. Viola?
Hello there. How are you today?
Very well. You're on.
Thank you so much, Tracy Viola from Wayne. I just wanted to follow up and regarding Basker's comments on electric vehicles, and I'm happy to forward any type of articles. I'm actually reading one right now per what Basker said about how emissions differ by region and how the life cycle might be different and the power grid, et cetera. It does conclude that electric vehicles are better for the lifetime cycle of the vehicle than gas powered, using a variety of sources and data points. So happy to forward any information to you as well.
Thank you, Ms. Viola.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your comment. Any further public comment? Seeing none, hearing none, I call the motion to a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those against? Motion passes. Next is a motion to approve proposal from Hirschberg Mechanical for Public Works Garage. Mr. Duraco.
Thank you. Included in the 2022 capital budget is adding heat to we have one unheated garage in the Public Works area. And with the construction of the new sewer building, we felt like now is a great time to add the heat since we're running the gas lines to the new building, shorter run, save some money there. But also it'll allow us to actually be able to work in that garage in the winter on maintenance items, as well as allow us to not have to plug in the diesel trucks. Right now, in the winter, we have to keep them plugged in to keep the oil warm, so that way they'll start in the morning in those cold months. We do have it in the budget. We had it in at $20,000, but we chose to defer the replacement of the fuel pump right now because of, again, the ongoing construction and just the timing. So the proposal is $42,625 and is reflective of CoStar's pricing.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. All right. Is there any board comment?
I have a question. You say here that on the benefit, one of the benefits is reduce energy usage. So how much is it going to cost us? I mean, we're going to use energy to heat the garage, right?
It'll be gas, so
It's still energy.
Yeah, we'll still use less gas than we would. I mean, it's a pretty big draw on the electric, the electricity, because we have a decent amount of trucks that we get parked in that garage.
So you think it actually will be cheaper to heat the garage than to plug in the trucks?
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Any further board comment? Public comment? Hearing none, seeing none, I call the motion to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those against? Motion passes. J, motion to approve proposal from Brown and Caldwell for the design of the Station Avenue Forest Main Replacement Project. Mr. Duraco.
Thank you. Over the last several months, Darren and I have been working closely with Brown and Caldwell on just the overall really capital plan for the sewer department. And one of the items that we've been working on is looking at the replacement of our force mains. They are the original force mains that were installed in the 60s and 70s. And therefore, in terms of accounting and as well as engineering, it's time to upgrade those facilities. This particular force main, Station Avenue, is approximately 2,600 linear feet. And one of the issues that we have is its current alignment runs through people's yards, which doesn't make access very easy or efficient. This proposal has that changing to stay in the road. The proposal from Brown and Caldwell for engineering design is $170,300. This essentially planning and design phase essentially will take about a year. This point next year will be, we expect to be able to bid the project out. We will take into account the fact that some of this work will be on Conestoga Road. We're trying not to disrupt school traffic and issues like that. So we would expect later on down the road that portion of the project will have some night work. So again, to be as minimally disruptive as possible. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second, I'll take one of those as a second. I'll let Ms. Hoffman decide which one. Any board comment? Any public comment? And Mr. Rocco, this comes, of course, from the sewer fund, these?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay, great. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Okay, motion to approve Franklin Mint Federal Credit Union as a depositor and to approve the township manager and assistant township manager as signers on associated accounts. Mr. DeRocco.
Thank you. I was approached by a contact at Franklin Mint to see if the township would be interested in depositing some of its money with the credit union. We were able to negotiate a rate of 2%, which is more than any other institution that we have money in. This was run by the Finance Committee. They thought it was a great idea, as did we, and so we're here to ratify that and make this happen.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second? All right, there we go. We're gonna have to work on that. I'm always in favor of chasing the rates. That's good. But this one's not gonna lock us in with this depository institution if we find better rates somewhere else, or we can negotiate further, correct?
Yeah, they guaranteed 2% for at least 12 months. After that, we can renegotiate, and even before that, if the market moves it, we'll be able to move it.
I guess my question is, within that 12 months, if we see rates go up higher than that, we can still renegotiate, correct?
Yeah, the money's completely liquid, and it is collateralized as well.
Any further board comment? Any public comment? Hearing none, seeing none, I call the motion to a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. L, motion to approve the developer agreement, financial security agreement, and stormwater best management practices O&M agreement from Devon Preparatory School. Mr. McKenna.
Thank you, Supervisor Holt. Before you for this evening for your consideration is approval of the standard form of agreement for this land development for Devon Prep School. This was a project that received final approval from the Planning Commission in October of 2021 related to the construction of new athletic facilities and a turf field. We did review these agreements. They are presented and signed already by the applicant. As noted, it is our standard form of developer, financial security, and stormwater O&M agreement. So we are looking for board consideration for approval of these agreements tonight.
Thank you. Do we have a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Very well. Board discussion?
So this stormwater O&M agreement, we have these on all our other developments also? Is this
Correct.
And where are they kept? Like if I wanted to see them
Well, they're recorded with the Chester County Recorder's Office, but the township also maintains a copy.
So you have these someplace? So, because we get questions all the time, especially in Chesterbrook, about specific development that's been done.
Well, Chesterbrook could be a little bit different depending upon when it was constructed.
Yeah.
It could predate the stormwater O&M requirements.
Okay. So when do we start with these requirements?
These are post of our 2009 stormwater ordinance, and the formal agreements are actually even more recent in the last, maybe 5 years. So these are kept. We have, like as Patrick had stated, there is a copy here kept at the Township building for more recent development projects, and even stormwater grading projects. We have those on file, and then they're at the county, and they can be found on a parcel basis. You can search the parcels and find that data for those properties.
So we could go back and look and see what's, all right, thank you.
Any other board comment? Any public comment? Hearing none, seeing none, I call a motion to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. Next, motion to forward petition to amend zoning ordinance by Canoe Brook Development for compatible multifamily dwelling or apartment house in office district to the Planning Commission. Ms. McPherson.
Thank you, Chairman, or Vice Chairman Holt, members of the board. Yeah, we received a petition from Canoe Brook Development. They are looking to amend the office zoning district to add the compatible multifamily dwelling and apartment house use. The property they're looking to develop is actually adjacent to Lifetime. So this use would be considered a complementary amenity to that health club use. So that's how it's written in the ordinance. It's kind of an adjacent or a complementary use. It has to be associated with a health club of a certain size. And the applicant is here today if you have any questions, but right now we are just looking to make a motion to forward this draft ordinance to the Planning Commission for review.
Thank you, Ms. McPherson. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Very well. Is there board comment?
Yes, I had some questions about how this would work out and other places where it might apply. For example, I saw that one of the benefits that the applicant and Lifetime Athletic would receive is the apartment building proposed could have fewer parking spaces than would otherwise be required, because it looks like the parking spaces from Lifetime Athletic would count toward the parking spaces required by the Lifetime Living building. There were other things like that, and I'm not sure that's a good idea. I mean, I can see how they might say, well, we're the same people, so it counts, but I can certainly see situations in which everybody from Lifetime Apartments will not be working out at Lifetime Athletic and therefore have their car there. And I also thought that perhaps because of the proximity, they weren't going to drive their car to Lifetime Athletic at all. And so they still need to have their cars parked somewhere.
Right, yeah, they certainly wouldn't be driving to Lifetime. There's actually, I think, in the application, we still have to go through all that with land development, but I mean, they would be some sort of access way that, they're not going to drive from the apartments to Lifetime.
Yeah, I also didn't understand the inclusion of hotels. So if such type of apartment building were built, let's say not close to Lifetime Athletic, but for example, closer to the various hotels that we have in the township. Is that actually realistic that we could have apartment buildings going up next to the other hotels, such as the Marriott or the Residence by Marriott or the Fairfield by Marriott? Or
I'm not sure which section you're talking about, but the apartment or hotel use would be in coordination with a health club. So I don't think they're looking to put up a hotel and
it says for hotels to take advantage of the amenities that, the health club, a sports club could provide, or that a hotel could provide. And I wondered what kind of amenities do hotels regularly provide to people who are not guests at that hotel? And I wonder if they meant like the hotel's little workout room, or what are they getting at to include hotels in this change?
Do you have a section you're referencing?
It says the auxiliary health club and/or hotel and compatible multifamily dwelling or apartment house shall be developed pursuant to a common plan of development, or the auxiliary health club and/or hotel shall be in existence at the time of the development. So, I'm just wondering why we have hotel in here, and what does that accomplish?
Yeah, we could certainly look at that. Again, this is, the beginning stages of it. Obviously, it has to go to the Planning Commission for review. We will have to work out maybe some of the language in that ordinance. I can certainly take a look at that, and then, we can make modifications as we see necessary. Again, this is just to start the review process. They submitted the petition, so
Right.
we're kind of required to have the Planning Commission review that.
I understand that. I'm just trying to understand what the end goal is here and why certain of these things were included in the proposed ordinance change. What does that do? Is it, obviously there's an advantage here to Lifetime Athletic to build these Lifetime apartments very close there.
The applicant is here, so, if you have a question, we can have
Okay,
Ms.
if you
Yarnoff
don't mind coming
address
up to
that.
the microphone and trying to help me understand this.
Good evening, my name,
And my sons and my husband all go to Lifetime to work out. I will, I'll give you that. I'm just trying to figure out
Sure.
how this would apply broadly across the township.
sure. So good evening, my name is Denise Yarnoff. I'm here on behalf of the applicant. And you're asking very good questions, and as Ms. McPherson said, this is really early on in the process. We've been discussing this generally with staff and with the ordinance committee over the last year or so, and we've talked about a number of different ideas and options, and this is the one that we've moved forward with. And certainly as we continue to discuss this with the township and the staff and the planning commission and with all of you, we will certainly look at making any appropriate changes. The specific question you asked about with hotels and fitness centers, we were considering an appropriate way to add this use to the office district, and we looked at the opportunity of adding or allowing for a complementary multifamily use when it was directly adjacent to either a fitness club of a certain size or a hotel which also provides for certain types of amenities that could be shared between the two. Obviously, in this situation, we're interested in the connection with the fitness center, and the hotel was included in order to make it a little broader in scope. But we are certainly happy to look at that and look at whether the hotel addition is necessary, should potentially be considered to be removed. And with regard to your parking question, again, that's something too that we can continue to discuss. The township parking requirement for multifamily is a rather high number, and it made sense in this situation because there's so much parking already associated with the property that if there was the opportunity to have some shared ability, that it would just decrease the amount of impervious and stormwater management. And then I would just add too that the way the ordinance is drafted, it requires additional stormwater management over and above what would otherwise be required. But in general, the idea is to allow for a lifetime fitness living use, which is something that Lifetime has done in a few other locations throughout the country, and in very select, unique locations. They believe that Tredyffrin fits the model of where it makes sense, and they're supremely successful in terms of people liking them, using them, wanting to be there, and to be able to have the amenity of the health club associated with it. And what will happen too is that the health club is actually the manager of the hotel, and so everything is very coordinated together. So there's a lot more we can certainly talk about. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them.
You don't mean manager of the hotel, you mean of the apartments?
I'm sorry, manager
Right?
of the apartment.
Okay.
Apologize, thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Just a couple questions. How many
Sure.
families and how many individuals do you anticipate going to this apartment?
There's 197 units that currently on our concept plan we're considering. But again, if the township were to approve the amendment, we would still need to go through land development and make certain that we can meet all the requirements. And so that's the number that in the concept plan is shown. Any other questions? Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to speak.
Any additional board comment? I would just say that I completely recognize the early stages of this plan, and it's a large project. We already have a number of apartment buildings that have come online in Tredyffrin in the last couple of years, including one that hasn't even come online yet, but will soon be. And although it seems like that would be a good location for something like this, it is something for all of us to consider if we need more of these apartment buildings and the impact and costs it has on infrastructure, schools, and everything along those lines. I think it's something that we'll all have to really give some really heavy consideration going forward. Any public comment?
Ray Clark from Melbourne again. Obviously, it's a very scary thing when an applicant comes up and argues for an ordinance change that affects the entire township for one specific purpose. So I'm sure the Planning Commission will spend a lot of time really understanding how many other situations could this apply to, and really to the question of Supervisor Humble about hotels and health facilities and so on. And clearly we do have to be very cautious about the change in the makeup of the township and what kind of township we want. Thanks.
Yeah, I'd like to just add something from my point of view, which is that certainly I am concerned about the quality of life of the township, having lived here for as many years as I have. And one of the questions I asked Ms. McPherson earlier today was, what are we approving? And the answer here at this point is we're just approving. And by the way, I also asked whether there were other alternatives, like getting variances and so on for this project. And she clarified that all we're doing at this point is sending this to the Planning Commission for their review, and that it requires the supervisors to act to send this to the Planning Commission for a review. So at this point, I think I'm comfortable with doing that, but certainly I'd want to know a lot more about the project and so on when it actually comes to, any more details in the future.
Yeah, Aaron, can I just ask a question? I assume this eventually comes back to us to approve, assuming the Planning Commission, there'll be a lot of wood to chop in planning, I get that, but eventually this comes back here, is that right?
Of course, yes. Yeah, it's a zoning amendment, so it has to go through PC review. It also has to go through county review. And then, yeah, just like some of the other ones that we're going through later, we'll have to schedule a public hearing. All that discussion will happen during the public hearing, and the board would act at that time.
Yeah, that's what I understood, but I just want everyone to know there's definitely a lot of wood to chop before anything actually happens here.
Any further public comment? Hearing none, seeing none, I call the motion to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it, the motion passes. Next, Motion to consider and authorize the advertisement of a public hearing on September 19, 2022 for HR 454, amending the Code of Tredyffrin to add a chapter for plastic bag regulations. Ms. McPherson.
Thank you, Vice Chair Holt, members of the board. At the May Board of Supervisor meeting, we heard a presentation regarding single-use plastics and the need for an ordinance. At that time, the board authorized staff and the solicitor to draft an ordinance. Since that time, we have done that, and we are now looking to make the motion to advertise and adopt this zoning amendment. Actually, it's not a zoning amendment. It's its own separate ordinance. Sorry, so I'm just looking at so that is a correction. It is not a zoning amendment. It's a standalone ordinance. We'll make a motion to advertise the adoption of the ordinance and a public hearing for September 19th.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. One of those. We'll count as a second. Discussion, board discussion.
Yeah, I think, actually first I'd like to thank the EAC and Resident Tracy Viola for driving this. I think this is much needed from a number of reasons. That having a single-use plastic ordinance is appropriate. We do have issues with blocked stormwater drains from plastic bags, and it takes time to clear those on the part of township staff, and also when there is a stormwater event, people's homes get flooded. And I don't know about you, but I wouldn't be happy if my home got flooded, and it also puts our first responders at risk when they have to go rescue people from those kinds of events when people are stranded. I think this is a single-use plastic ordinance is a good step to take for the township. I think that, and going beyond that, there are things like styrofoam for takeout food, and those are, again, that lasts forever. And 5 years ago, perhaps there wasn't such a good alternative, but today there are excellent alternatives for which are just as good as styrofoam or which are cost competitive. And so I think now is the time for us to move. So I am very happy to be the one making the motion to bring this up for a public hearing, and I would really like to see this go forward.
Thank you, Supervisor Bhaskar. Any further board comment?
Vice Chair Holt, I second every one of Supervisor Bhaskar's comments. There is nothing else for me to say. It's done. So, thank you.
Yeah, I'm supportive, but I have a couple of comments to the ordinance or the document is written. And one is in the findings on number 4, we say in the township such bags are not readily recyclable. Like, I haven't thrown one away in years. I mean, like, you either reuse them in your little trash cans or you take them to the recycle bin in the park. I mean, I was there this morning. So I get that they're not readily recycled because people don't do it all the time, but anybody who tries, it's like not that hard. I think the EAC and the township have done a fabulous job of making them recyclable, and we get a bench every 6 months because of it. So I have I guess a little bit of a problem with that. And then number 7, from an overall environmental and economic perspective, the best alternative to single use, from an economic perspective, I mean, all of the replacements are more expensive. I mean, just 100% of them are more expensive. I get that we don't want microplastics in our environment. I get that from an overall environmental perspective, we would prefer, we shouldn't have these products out there. So I get all that, but it's going to cost people money. So people should understand that it's just going to cost a little bit more to have these out there. And to have that in there is just sort of a little disingenuous to say it's going to be cheaper. It's just like not true. And then I go to page 95, which is the exception part. And I think we should read through this carefully because I'm not sure what the criteria are, but more importantly, I'm worried that it doesn't say that you have to renew, that once you give someone an exception, I think it sounds like it's forever.
No, it's actually in there, and Aaron, you can correct me if I'm wrong. It was essentially a six month. I'd have to pull it up again, but there was a limitation, if I recall correctly.
I don't see it on here. Maybe it's in there somewhere else. I didn't see it.
For the exemption, I don't think so. I
thought there was. I thought we had put it in, I'll double check, but I thought we had a...
There's something for the fine. I believe that's...
Yeah. So it just reads as like, I mean, technology changes. I mean, as Bhaskar correctly pointed out, technology evolves. So if we give someone an exception for whatever, just pick an example, today, that doesn't mean we want to continue that exception forever. I would assume that at some point the technology will improve and we would say, hey, guess what, your exception's gone. So we'd want them to renew it with some frequency.
Supervisor Miller?
Sorry, go ahead.
Supervisor Miller, I agree. I mean, if we don't have, I read it to believe that the Board of Supervisors could set the terms of the exemption. But I could be wrong, and I wouldn't want to take that risk.
That is true. The board is the one that grants the...
We grant it, but it doesn't say, and set the terms of. I mean, now I'm putting a lawyer hat and say, hey, once I have my exemption, I'm home free. And that can't be. That can't be.
Look, there's actually... the word here that I find useful is unique. Okay, so someone has to come and make the case to the board that they really have a unique situation. And, let's say, and again, I can't, sorry, I'm not my brainstorming and imagining of situations is not particularly good, but they would actually have to come and make the case as to why their situation is unique. And when the Board of Supervisors grants that exemption, it is there's nothing here that says the board can't give that exception for the duration of the time that their situation is unique. So I think that actually gives us a lot of leeway to act.
So again, I just looking at the section, I had recalled this, section 165-7. The township may, upon the request, grant an exemption of this chapter until October 1st, 2023. That was my point. There is a deadline. The exemption is temporary until that time period, and then your exemption expires.
It was in front of me, but not readable. I couldn't figure it. But yes, that...
They have to comply with the ordinance.
So after October 1st, 2023, they have to comply?
Correct.
So there's no exceptions after October 1st?
Correct.
2023?
As the ordinance is written, that's correct.
Full stop, you can't grant anything after that?
Not as it's currently written, that's correct.
That's not how we read it, okay.
When I was reading this, and I know we need to be able to reduce the amount of plastic bag usage, but many that I get from different stores it's broadly imprinted with made from recycled materials. So when we're getting, I would think we could do some kind of exception for when the plastic bags are made from something recycled. And I'm with David, like any plastic bags that come to my house, I use them to line the waste paper baskets or the trash baskets in the bathrooms, or I take them to recycling, and it's not just the township who is providing recycling options. The local grocery stores also have boxes where all of this can be deposited. I think something that Supervisor Miller had brought up before had to do with the heavier weight of plastic bags. So while they may be more biodegradable, it ultimately is going to use more energy to transport the paper bags, whether to the stores that use them, or when they're being sent out for recycling, all that adds additional weight. So, these are some things that I thought that we should consider. I think that there's multiple uses for these plastic bags after we initially get them. And I just would like to see that considered strongly.
I'm not a big fan of the exemption language. I think everybody should be held to the same standard, and I don't really want to get into this board getting into a situation where we're deciding what's undue hardship. And even though it's defined here, I think I would just rather see it removed and everybody subject to the same ordinance. Make it easy. But there is sausage made in these ordinances, and I do want to appreciate and thank all the supervisors and staff that went into this, because this was not an easy lift to pull this together. And a lot of thought went into this. I would like perhaps Finance Committee to take a look at the idea of providing some promotional bags, perhaps, Tredyffrin Township goes green type thing, when this ordinance hopefully goes into effect, and make that available free of charge for residents that may need them. It's one idea I had, and otherwise, those are my comments.
It would be great to pass out those biodegradable bags at Community Day. Hint, hint.
Public comment? Yes. Ms. Viola.
Hello, yes. First, I just want to start really by thanking everybody, the board, Aaron, and all the others, just as you mentioned, Matt, for their efforts and their work towards this, especially the fact that they did it during the summer months. So I really just want to say thank you for the thought and detail that went into it. I'm obviously very excited to see Tredyffrin joining the many Pennsylvania local cities and townships that already have their plastic ordinances, and I'm proud to be part of a community that's taking these steps as a leader for the many townships that are actively working towards their own ordinance. I believe in the last time that I presented, Easttown ordinance has passed, Soulbury Township has passed, and I'm excited to also say that Wegmans has committed to be plastic bag free by 2023. So that's something I'm very excited about. To answer a couple quick questions or a couple points posed, only 9% of plastic across this country, across the board, is actually recycled. So I'm so glad to hear us talking about the fact that you do reuse your bags and you do recycle your bags, and those Trex recycling containers are available at TE Middle School. They're available at the libraries. But the reality is they're just not being used by the vast majority of people and our residents. So it's just something that needs to be obviously addressed and something I'm passionate about. I had the fortune and pleasure of spending 3 weeks in Europe this summer, and to say they are light years ahead of the US is putting it lightly. I mean, there are no plastic bags. Everybody is carrying a reusable bag. Nobody questions it. Nobody is complaining about it. Even in Germany, utensils, you have to purchase utensils. If you want a utensil to eat some food, it is 0.25 euro to purchase a utensil. And it's 0.25 euro to purchase one paper bag. And nobody, it's fine. It's all good. Everybody is fine with it. There's no plastic, there's no trash. The recycling system is above and beyond. They compost. We'll talk about that another time. I'll work on that next year. But in the meantime, I know we can do this. I know our community is behind it. I know our businesses will adapt. And I am here to help move this forward. I'm here to help educate businesses and community members and do a reusable bag drive for members that might need, to get 5 reusable bags for their trunk of their car for when they go shopping. So anyway, I just want to say thank you, and I'm here, and I'm really excited about our community, and I know we can do this. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, and thank you for your work on this proposed ordinance.
Actually, I just want to add one comment to. So one of the things that Ms. Viola did during her preparation work for this is actually go talk to a lot of businesses about the potential impact. And what she found was that the bigger businesses, they don't have a problem because they're already doing this in other locations that have the single-use plastic restrictions. And for the smaller businesses, all they asked for was time. They said, especially since they can charge for paper bags and they get to keep the revenue, they said, we can deal with this, we just need time to make it happen. And I think that nobody's talking about doing the ordinance overnight. We bring the ordinance in, there's a time for them to get into compliance, and I think that they've all said that that was an ample amount of time. And the other thing is, I'd like to relate a personal experience. About 5 years ago, I had the opportunity to fly into Kigali, Rwanda, and in the airplane they announced that plastic bags were banned in all of Rwanda. And when we got to the airport and drove to the hotel, I have to say that is the cleanest city I've ever seen anywhere in the world. Now, I don't want to comment on the system of government and all of that, but in terms of cleanliness, it was spotless. And I think that this may have had something to do with it. It's more of a cultural thing. And I think that cultural change is hard, but I think that that's something we have to make happen.
We did get an email sent in from a resident, Mandy Tishbangu. Hello, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for your continued support and work on the single-use plastic waste reduction plus paper bag fee. It's a very important ordinance that will help the future of our planet. Keep up the good work.
Keep those emails coming. All right, thank you. Any other public comment? Hearing none, seeing none, I call the motion to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. Next, motion to consider and authorize advertisement of a public hearing on September 19, 2022 for HR 455, approving appointment of solicitor, interest assessment, and attorney's fees and collection fees added to the amount collected as part of unpaid real estate taxes and municipal claims for delinquent accounts. Mr. Duraco.
Thank you. Late last year, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau put out some new guidelines on collections for delinquent accounts. Specifically, in this case, it's our township taxes that Portnoy collects. Based on that, they have to change how they collect and the fees associated with those collections. That's all outlined in the ordinance and in our updated agreement with Portnoy to collect those taxes. So happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Any second?
Second.
Any board discussion?
Yes, I think Portnoy does a good job, and I know Michelle Portnoy personally, and I support this motion.
Any public discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, I call the motion to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next, motion to consider and authorize advertisement of a public hearing on September 19, 2022 for HR 456 to consider a zoning text amendment for office district and map amendment for 1340 West Swedesford Road. Ms. McPherson.
Thank you, Vice Chair Holt, members of the board. This also came in as a petition from an applicant at 1340 West Swedesford. They were looking to put a self-storage unit in on that property. When we looked through previous zoning decisions, self-storage was allowed as a warehouse use, which we thought at the time it best be modified to include, because the warehouse is obviously a little different than self-storage. So we thought that it would be best to add an additional use called self-storage. This use would be allowed in the same way that the warehouse use is allowed, which is by right in the LI and the PIP, and then by a special exception in the office district. And then in addition to that, The applicant was looking for a map change. Currently, the property is zoned C2, and they're looking to make an amendment to make that property an office. I guess I will respectfully request that the board make a motion to authorize the advertisement and the adoption of the zoning ordinance amendments at a public hearing on September 19th, 2022.
Thank you, Ms. McPherson. Is there a motion?
Second.
Board discussion.
Quick question. It's the map changes for the Sims property.
That's correct.
Yeah,
Yes.
the old Sims property.
Yeah, it's a mainline sports.
Mainline
facility now.
sports. It was the old Sims.
Right.
It's only that property.
It's only that property.
Yeah, only that property in terms of the map
Yes,
amendment.
and Supervisor Wysocki also was at Planning Commission who reviewed, it's been there for a couple of meetings, so they made some edits and really tightened it up, and so they've made the recommendation as well to move it forward.
Right, yeah, it was reviewed by the Planning Commission, so.
Yeah, but pretty extensively. They asked it. There's a lot of work went into this. I had one question about vehicles stored on the property. So if there were vehicles stored as opposed to just driven in and out, do those vehicles? Is there a requirement someplace that those vehicles have to be licensed and drivable?
Yes, that's a township code
Okay.
throughout.
Yeah,
It
okay,
wouldn't
thought
matter with any zoning district. They have to be registered in
Okay.
order to be stored or located on the property.
Okay, thank you.
So this means that someone wouldn't necessarily be able to bring in, containers of hydrofluoric acid and stash them there?
Yeah, there's also a zoning code, again, not specific to specific to every property in the township that you can't store hazardous material on your property. There's a section in the zoning ordinance for that. That applies to every property in the township.
Any public comment?
Ann Murphy, Berkshire Terrace. I just wanted to combine a couple of my comments, just sort of reflecting on some of the things that have been accomplished tonight. One is the approval of the stormwater fee. I know we've been working on this for quite a while with Engineer Burgo, and we know that there's going to be a lot of work for staff involved, and we appreciate the effort that's been done on that. The bag ordinance, I know the EAC was working on that before I even got involved with them, and the fact that the staff was able to turn around an ordinance in 2 months from, I think, when it was initially approved to now, I think is a real credit to both the EAC and the staff. And then I just wanted to add something to what Supervisor Miller said about all the important things and ordinances that are coming up, and just sort of maybe try to prioritize in the future what we add to the staff and their solicitor. We have also on their docket, I would say, the Woodland Conservation Ordinance. Supervisor Wysocki knows about it, and so does Supervisor Gussie and Freed, but the rest of you might not know that there is a ordinance that has been drafted, and that the staff and the solicitor are also looking on refining that. So that's just one more thing they have to worry about or deal with, but we appreciate all the effort and just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Seeing no further public comment, I call the motion to a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Q. Next, motion to approve capital purchase to upgrade network infrastructure equipment from BWT at a cost of $28,728.04. Mr. Draco.
Thank you. This is a ratification of a purchase that was brought to the board last month. There was some back and forth discussion. I believe essentially it came down to Supervisor Bhaskar reviewing the purchase with our IT department, specifically our IT director. I think he satisfied the supervisor's questions, and so the board, we're just asking to ratify the purchase tonight.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Board discussion.
So I just wanted to add my 2 cents worth as the resident geek and nerd on the board, which is that this actually came up last month for discussion, and I was the one that put the brakes and wanted to ask some more questions. So I want to say that I'm satisfied. I'd like to thank Mr. Girastante for running with this and for answering the questions. So I plan to vote yes on this and sort of reconfirm the vote that we had informally following the previous meeting.
And as always, as Supervisor Bhaskar goes on IT infrastructure quotes, is the way I go. So thank you for providing that. Yeah, I think that's pretty much the whole board. Any public comment? Hearing none, seeing none, I call the matter to a vote. All those approve, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion passes. Next, we move on to new matters. Board members, any new matters? I only have one quick question of Mr. Burgo, and very quick and very brief. My understanding is that the Paoli train station bridge is now scheduled for 2024 liftoff, 2025?
That's a great question. It's been a couple weeks for me for vacation, so I have to think back when I last talked to PennDOT. It has slipped substantially. Originally, they were supposed to be under construction last year, and then this year. I think 2024, maybe late 24, and it could even be a little bit further into 2025, the last time I talked to PennDOT. They still are working with Amtrak to get their agreements finalized. I think with Amtrak, that's not been completed, and that's been going on for several years. And then I believe they still have to finish the final portions of their design, which I thought that they were already done, but they have to finish that and get the package ready for bidding. They have acquired a lot of the properties around there, and I know they are going to be, working on some of those action items over the next year or so to start dealing with some of those properties, but I'm not sure. Honestly, I'm not really sure. It might be a good thing for the Paoli Task Force folks to maybe provide an update at one of their future meetings.
It's something I would like us to take a look at because those properties are looking worse and worse, and it's become a major eyesore in downtown Paoli. And from our last discussions, I do recall you saying that the onus is somewhat on Amtrak, and it makes me wonder if we need to get a letter to Congresswoman Houlihan or to our senators, just to at least show that we care, we're frustrated, and if there's anything that can be done, it's something that we'd like to see accomplished. So along with the Paoli Task Force, I'd like staff to consider what possibly we can do. Citizen new matters.
Bob Roby, Paoli Fire Company. Just want to say to you guys, we really appreciate the opening comments tonight. That was very appreciative for that and recognizing the EMS right on. I've talked to some of you on a different forum that we're only seeing about 20% of donations coming in from households. It's 1 in 5 households usually, 1 in 3 businesses. So any kind of public forum discussion, it really helps out. Especially repeated public awareness can really go a long way for sustainable funding. But tonight I also have a question that this might not be the forum, might talk to staff, but with that public discussion that we're talking about and entertaining the fire companies, it's really difficult for someone to get to our website through the Tredyffrin website. So I'm asking tonight, is there any possibility that we could, under services, similar to the police, put fire and EMS, so there's just a hot link to go from any services that Tredyffrin Township provides to the 3 fire companies, and then you just click on them and you go right to their homepage. Right now it's kind of convoluted. You have to go through the police services and then emergency services, and then you have to go to first responders, and then the fire companies come up. So just something to streamline. I can talk with you offline at any time, but just very appreciative of the public awareness, and if we could make the website a little bit easier.
Thank you so much for your comments. They're much appreciated, and we'll get looking at that right away.
All right, thank you.
Hi, I'm Mike Drobich. I'm from Chesterbrook. I just wanted to give my thanks and congratulations to the folks that did the Tredyffrin Township Village Walk back on July 28th. It was a very interesting, informative, and enjoyable evening. I saw Murph there at one point at the Barns. And the folks who did this were terrific. They were very dedicated to their causes, and other than the weather being like a tropical rainforest, it was a really great evening. So I just wanted, if you guys, any of you know the organizations that put this together, please give them my congratulations and thanks. That's it.
Thank you, and it was really our historical commission who, which put it together, together with the county historical folks. So, and there were, the Tredyffrin East Town Historical Society. So yeah, it was really good. But basically, our Tredyffrin Historical Commission really put it together. So thank you.
Good evening. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. I'm here on behalf of Mr. Joseph Natoli, who is participating on Zoom and may choose to join, and also Mr. Larry Sun, who is a resident at the preserve. You may recall last month I spoke a bit on Zoom, and I feel a little uncomfortable because I see the collegiality and everything that's been said is sort of like very reaffirming and people thanking one another for being careful and reviewing things. And this is obviously not a forum where people air grievances or make complaints. But that is the situation, unfortunately, that I have to present to you. I'm talking here on behalf of Mr. Sun, who loaned $19,000 to Mr. Natoli. Mr. Natoli was working on stormwater work which was not included in a subdivision plan, but which was required for some reason by the township in order that Mr. Sun could occupy his home, whereas 3 other people were allowed to occupy their homes without the same stormwater work being required. So it's an unusual situation. I'm sure there's more to it than I understand based on all the documents that I've reviewed. It's easy to bog down in details on something like this. And again, I recognize that everyone here is here more or less because of civic interest. And I know that you're a very well-organized township, but nevertheless, this is something that I feel has slipped through the cracks. I have seen correspondence after correspondence starting in the year 2016, where different staff members say to one another in emails and other memoranda that Mr. Natoli should be paid, and that some kind of something has to get worked out, maybe involving releases or something, who knows, because no releases have ever been given to Mr. Natoli. Also odd in this situation is that Mr. Sun had to put up his own money. Yet, at the very same time, the township claims that it had over $40,000 earmarked for the very work that Mr. Natoli did. So from an outsider's naive point of view, it's a great puzzlement why the township didn't just pay what it could. And then if you read the letter, I won't bore you by reading, you can look at this later. There are documents. The first document is a maintenance agreement on the subdivision itself. It was something required by the township, and it says in very plain English that all the homeowners are equally liable, and it says in any way related to the private roadway. You may say, well, this didn't involve the roadway. Well, just a minute. We're talking about stormwater detention for what? For the accelerated road runoff, for the rain going quickly off of a road rather than slowly through a meadow. So the stormwater work would be paid equally by Mr. Sun and the other three homeowners, just in the event that the township had not escrowed enough money. So the whole thing to me is a vast puzzle, and I do respect that things slip through the cracks. I am very tired, and so is Mr. Natoli, tired of being brushed off. I've been brushed off now for 3 years. I asked in writing for an audited accounting of the cash flow from that escrow fund. It's never been given to me. All that I was given was copies of handwritten requests, some of them over a short period of time, saying to you folks or your predecessors, release this money to this contractor, release this money to that contractor. And then last month, someone in all good sense said, well, who hired Mr. Natoli? Well, according to the Municipal Planning Code, which I've quoted and I've cited in here for you, according to that code, what matters is that Mr. Natoli did the work and that he met the inspection standards of your staff and of your engineer, and that he requested to be paid, and that your staff acknowledged in writing that the work was accepted. According to the Municipal Planning Code, if you don't pay him, if you don't object within 45 days of his request, it is by law, it is deemed to be approved. Therefore, it is due. It's been due for 6 years, folks. Now, I know that it's more fun to talk about plastic bags and
Mr. Pevvar,
things like
we've
that.
allotted you about 7 minutes now, which is usually about the time we would ask our residents to
Well, then I would like to know if Mr. Natoli would like to speak on his own behalf. I know he was not able to come, but he may be on the Zoom right now.
Would Mr. Natoli care to make a comment?
Hello, are you guys there?
Yes, we can hear you.
So, Joe Natoli here, and just in comment of what Mr. Pevvar is saying is accurate. Just in a nutshell, I was asked to do the work. I was told there's money in escrow to cover the work that needed to be done. The township directed me to increase the size of what was on the design 20%. The township provided inspections on behalf of Princeton Hydro of all my work. We did the job. We finished the job. I was provided with a punch list of a few things to finish. We also had something extra in addition to the 20% of the bed increase in size. We had a thing added on which was called a plunge pool, and that was something the township had to have designed, engineered, and then approved. All of which was installed, and what you want to say. I've completed the final punch list. I have submitted bills to be paid, and just simply enough, I just want to get paid for the work that we did and move along. I feel it's been time. I'm also not familiar with the Zoom. I can't see you guys now because I'm on, but in a nutshell, I would like to get this cleared up simply as possible. We did the work. I accepted direction from the township, and the bed is there functioning, I believe. Everything, I've been there, and everything's there. I don't know what else to say.
Thank you, Mr. Natoli, for your comments, and thank you, Mr. Pevor, for your comments today. We'll be sure to...
I believe, look, last time I was told it was going to be discussed, quote, offline. No one discussed it with me or Mr. Natoli. And also the Sunshine Act prohibits discussion offline for matters that are not active litigation or employee relations or real estate purchases. Now, this is the only forum where I have been allowed to speak and make this matter known. I would like very much, I asked last time, for you to, together, in your wisdom, to direct your staff to have some way to have a discussion, which we can do offline because you're not there in a quorum, and it's okay to do that. And so far, another month has passed with not one word of communication. It's not respectful of the law or of the situation. And I ask tonight for that to be accomplished, please.
Thank you very much, sir, and we'll make sure that the township manager or our solicitor will respond to your questions. Thank you very much. We will have them respond.
The matter is not a matter of litigation. It's a matter of accounting
Sir, I've
and payment.
responded to your request, and we will receive a response. Thank you. Are there any further citizen comments tonight? Hearing none, I call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?